Hey guys, so I wanted to pop on here and do a follow-up on the video I posted yesterday that in a really roundabout, long-winded way expressed why I say that The Walking Dead saved my life. If you haven't watched that video, go ahead and go back and watch that one first, because if you don't, this one won't make a whole lot of sense. But basically, I got a couple of questions last night in private message regarding some of the things I talked about in the video. And the biggest question was, at one point you said that you hadn't worked at all since July of 2011. If your main problem was the clot, can you what's keeping you from working? Can you elaborate on that? So here I am, hopefully looking a little less trollish than I did yesterday. I put a little bit of makeup on, tiny bit of effort into how I look today, so hopefully I don't scare anyone. Especially myself when I watch this footage back. But yeah, I wanted to come on here real quick and, well, again, we'll see how quick it is. But I wanted to elaborate on kind of what's been going on since then. So since the blood clot happened and since what would have been season 2 of The Walking Dead. And tonight at 9 o'clock is the premiere of season 8, so I'm super excited. I'm actually watching the AMC marathon they've got going on right now. And so here's the story. After the clot happened in 2011, I was on the mend, it seemed, for about 6 months, but I was giving myself some time because I was still having a lot of pain and swelling in my leg, and I was still having a lot of there was nerve damage in my hip that I was kind of hoping was going to work itself out because you have to wait. I mean, it can take years for nerves to reattach, so I was kind of waiting on that to see what happened. But the pain in my leg and my hip and in my pelvis just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And when I went back to my surgeon and I expressed this discomfort that I was having, I mean, there was a good chunk of time I was having to walk with a cane because my left leg just didn't want to work right. And he expressed to me that there's a condition called PTS, which is Post-Thrombotic Syndrome, which is pretty common after an extensive DVT, which I had an extensive DVT, that my leg would always hurt, it would always swell, and it was just kind of a condition that I was going to have to live with. And I was very upset about this because I knew this was going to be detrimental to my everyday life. But at the same time, he's like, well, with compression hose and physical therapy and stuff like that, it can get better. So I started doing physical therapy, and the physical therapy did nothing. I mean, all it did was cause me excruciating pain. And then after a while, my insurance stopped paying for it. On top of it not working, my insurance was like, nope, sorry. Like, we're not paying for it anymore. It's not medically necessary or what. I don't even remember why they opted to stop paying for it. But I was like, well, I can't afford this. I was going twice a week, and it was $175 a pop. Yeah, not a good situation. I can't afford this. So, and it wasn't helping anyway. So I stopped doing it. And even the physical therapist admitted, he's like, with patients with PTS, a lot of times this can actually not help. And then compression hose were a huge problem for me. It was causing pain in the nerve bundles in my upper leg, which had been damaged by the clot and the surgeries that I'd had to try to repair it. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm not going to do this anymore. This kind of sucks. So we jump ahead to 2012. It was probably early summer. I can't really remember the exact sequence at that point. everything since the clot in 2011 has kind of become jumbled together and a blur. So in 2000, so 17 years ago, I had what's called a pilonidal cyst, which is a cyst basically on your tailbone, on your coccyx. And it is incredibly painful if it abscesses. And it had abscessed back in 2000. So I had, I hate to get kind of gross, but I had it lanced and drained, and it had gone away, seemingly. And then it came back again, like 6 months later. And so I had an actual surgery to remove the cyst. And I was told by the surgeon at the time, they're like, okay, we've gotten it out. It's not going to come back. Awesome. 2012, it comes back in a big, bad way. It probably was exacerbated by the fact that I'd had all this stuff with the clot and all the surgeries and all that. And so I was very sedentary for that, 6 month to a year period from the kidney situation that started in June of 2011 through till the pilonidal cyst popped up. So it may very well have been caused by pressure from me basically sitting a lot. So the surgeon who did my procedure on the veins in my leg, my vascular surgeon / general surgeon, who is, I think of him as family now. I mean, I see him at least a couple times a year for something. So, and he's so funny and sweet and nice that I really kind of feel like he's family now. So I tell him when I see him for something, I'm like, I'm almost glad something popped up because I get to see you. And he's like, well, I mean, if you can find the silver lining, then that's great. And he's always happy to see me. So, it's cool. So I went to him because I was like, well, you're also a general surgeon and I trust you. And he was like, okay, yes, it's definitely back and it's pretty big and it's very abscess. Let's get the abscess gone, and then I'm going to do what's called a cleft lift procedure, which is essentially plastic surgery on your butt crack. So I had that surgery. I can't remember exactly when, but I had it. And let me tell you, the recovery for that was almost worse than the recovery from the blood clot surgeries, because I could not find a comfortable position to save my life. The only semi-comfortable position I could find was laying on my stomach, flat on my futon, with like a pillow under my hips, like a little pillow under my hips and like 2 pillows above my head. So I was at this very weird angle laying on my stomach. It was literally the only thing that was comfortable. And I stayed like that for days because, except to get up to go to the bathroom and stuff, because it was so uncomfortable. And I had these I felt like I was wearing a diaper. These huge bandages on my butt, essentially. It was like the most uncomfortable, obnoxious thing ever. But that healed, and he told me, he's like, he's done several of these cleft lip procedures for pilonidal cysts, which at that point he was calling chronic pilonidal disease because I'd had multiple recurrences, which is not 100%, it's not uncommon with this particular situation, but a lot of times people will only have one surgery, it'll be gone, and that's the end of it. So I had that, and then it came back again. It came back again. And he lanced and drained it, and we left it open. My husband had to, luckily he's an EMT, so he's not grossed out easily, but he had to, pack the wound. And if you've ever had a wound that you had to have packed, ow, it sucks. And then it closed up, it healed, and then it came back again. So I had another cleft lift procedure because he felt like he had no choice at that point. He's like, I have to do it again. We obviously missed something or whatever. So he goes back in, and there was far more stuff going on in there than he anticipated. So he had to leave it open so that it would air dry and heal from the inside out again. as opposed to stitching it shut. So again, my husband's having to pack this giant wound down my cleft. Finally, after that one, where we redid the cleft lip but left it open to open heal, so far, knock on wood, that was the last time. But that went on for like 2 years. So obviously I couldn't really work during that 2-year period. Somewhere between the second lance and drain and the second cleft lift, I started feeling horrible. Like my whole body hurt. And when I mean my whole body hurt, I mean my whole body hurt. Like from my hair follicles down to my toenails. Like that ache you get when you have the flu or you're coming down with the flu and you know it's coming. And that's what I thought initially. I'm like, okay, obviously I'm just coming down with the flu, or I'm coming down with a cold, or something's going on. I'm coming down with something. And it went on like that for like a week, but I never came down with anything. I was just in that achy, horrible, gross feeling stage of yuck but then it went away after like a week. It was just as quickly as it had come on, it disappeared. And I was like, all right, that was weird. Maybe I was coming down with something and it just didn't come to fruition, or my body fought it off, or whatever. Put it to the back of my head. But then it happened again. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, it happened again. Only this time it only lasted for like 3 days. And then it went away. And then like a week later, it happened again. Lasted 3 or 4 days, went away. And this happened every week at that point for 2 months. And I called my doctor, my primary care physician, and I was like, I have to make an appointment. Something's going on. Something's happening. And they're like, okay. So probably a month later, they weren't able to get me in for about a month, give or take, like 3 weeks. And so I go in to see my doctor and I explain everything. And I said, this is what it felt like. It also felt like my joints were swollen and like they were locking up on me. And, but mostly the most annoying part was that flu-like ache that just wouldn't go. It was bone deep, and I know anybody who's ever had the flu knows what I'm talking about, which is pretty much everyone on the planet. So you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's that bone deep, like, you've got a fever, but it's not a super high fever, but it's just high enough to make you feel like you want to die. That's the kind of ache that I'm talking about, along with a low-grade fever, I might add. But it never got above like 100. It was always like 99.8, 99.9. Never quite a fever, because I think 100.1 is technically, officially, medically a fever. So I had what's known as an elevated temperature, which I've had every day of my life since then. I now sit most of the time at about 99. Sometimes it goes lower. Sometimes it goes really low. Sometimes I've had 97.7 or something. And I'm like, that's really low for me. So anyways, so I explained to her and she's like, it totally, so she had him draw a bunch of blood, and I mean like 14 vials of blood. It was crazy. And when we got all the results back, there was nothing wrong with me. Like in my blood, like I didn't have any infections. I didn't have any cancers, of the blood or anything. I didn't have anything going on that would explain this bone deep ache and fatigue and digestive issues and like all these things that I had happening all at once, but like in waves. It was happening in waves. So she starts thinking autoimmune disease in the back of her head. She never really expressed that to me verbally until much later. But she starts thinking that. So she starts ordering tests in that vein of trying to see if that's what happened. Well, all those tests kept coming back normal or within normal range, which I've come to find out varies greatly depending on which lab your blood gets sent to. So I don't really think that's a very accurate measure of levels of things in your blood, because it's different at different labs, which I think is ridiculous, but whatever. That's beside the point. So she runs all these labs and everything's coming back normal. And then finally, there was one test that she had ran that she couldn't find. Like, we knew we drew the blood for it, but she couldn't find it. And finally she realized it had been filed in a different part of their computer system. So she finally finds it. And it turns out that I tested positive for anti-nuclear antibodies, which, for those of you who do have autoimmune disease or know anything about autoimmune disease, positive ANA, you're not supposed to, I mean, it can happen in healthy people that you can have a positive ANA, but I was symptomatic and then had a positive ANA. So that usually means that you have lupus, or at least something like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, scleroderma, something to that effect. But all my symptoms were tracking with lupus. So she said at one point, we are going to work under the assumption that you have lupus. I'm going to send you to a rheumatologist. Well, lo and behold, there's a severe shortage of rheumatologists in my area, particularly in the city that my doctor was in at the time. And so I couldn't get into the rheumatologist because that was the only test that had come up positive. Everything else was still within normal range. So I am screwed. Like, I can't get into this rheumatologist. So she's running other tests and doing other things, and they're still coming back normal. So the only thing I have at that point is I'm symptomatic and I have a positive ANA, but that's all I've got. Like, I don't have any of the other blood work that would corroborate anything. So I'm being turned down by multiple rheumatologists in the area because they're so overworked. They have too many patients, basically, and they don't want any more that aren't definitively ill with something that they oversee. Well, during this time frame, I'm still having all of these like aches and pains and digestive issues and migraines, which I've had migraines my entire life, so that's not new, but they were getting worse and becoming more frequent. And I was having difficulty swallowing, so I had a swallow study, but that didn't show anything. I was having a lot of back pain, which I finally now see a chiropractor for, thank the Lord, and a massage therapist, and that does help, which is wonderful, but it's not perfect because there is no perfect solution. So finally, my doctor she was a resident, or she was like the chief resident, and she ended up getting a job at another facility about 60 miles away. And I was devastated because I really loved that doctor. I trusted her. She had been assigned to me during the blood clot situation, so she knew my entire history and what I had been through and what was going on, and I really trusted her. And anybody who has chronic conditions can understand how hard it is to find a doctor that you really, really trust, and that really makes you feel safe and comfortable in their office, and you feel like you can tell them whatever you need to tell them, and you're not going to get judged or mocked or turned away or any of that. So she ended up leaving, and like I said, at the time she was going 60 miles away. I did not see it reasonable for me to try to follow her. So I stuck around the clinic I was at, and I got assigned a new doctor who also happened to be a resident just coming into the practice. So she was fresh out of medical school, which I actually love having residents as my doctor because they are more up on the current medical conditions and some of the more rare conditions and the chronic conditions and the autoimmune diseases and all the new, they're up on all that new stuff. And they also haven't had any time to be like burned out. I don't know how many in this 6-year journey through chronic illness that I've been having and continue to have. I've never had a resident talk down to me, but I've had many, 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 many older doctors treat me like I'm a hypochondriac, treat me like I'm a pill seeker, treat me like just a lesser person, treat me like a hysterical woman. And it's disgusting. And I've never had it happen more often than I have in the emergency room. I have a history of life-threatening blood clots. When I have leg swelling and pain, I'm concerned. And when it's 2:00 in the morning, my only option is to go to the ER. And there I get treated like a hypochondriac and a drug addict. And I mean, just whatever they could come up with at the time to essentially refuse treatment. I can't even tell you how many ER doctors told me to just live with it. With whatever I went in for, just live with it. Call your doctor, just live with it. Anyway, so I had this resident who was great. She was really great. She really listened. And she actually managed to get me into a rheumatologist after going over everything a million times in what happened to be the same town that my doctor had moved to, about 60 miles away, give or take. So I go to this rheumatologist. He examines me, runs a million blood tests. They do a full body panel of x-rays. I mean, it's a whole ordeal. And about a month later, I go back for all the results of the blood work and all that stuff. And he can't find anything in the blood work or anything. He did see some inflammation on the x-rays in some of my joints and stuff like that, but it wasn't enough to signal arthritis yet. And he basically goes, there is no doubt that you have fibromyalgia. Now, I have a few friends who have fibromyalgia, so I had already, in talking with them about my symptoms, we'd already kind of established that was probably what was going on. But I said, well, my doctor is pretty convinced that there's something autoimmune going on. And he goes, there very likely is, but your blood work's not tracking yet to show us which one. And I said, well, my original doctor had said something about lupus. And he goes, all of your symptoms, including your kidney problems and the blood clots, can track to lupus, systemic lupus erythematosus. However, if I were to diagnose you with that today, I would only be basing it on symptoms and history and one positive ANA test, not anything that I've seen in your current blood work. And he goes, the problem is lupus hides. And I said, what? And he goes, well, a lot of autoimmune diseases hide, meaning they flare and then they recede, and they flare and they recede, and they flare and they recede. And the problem is the only time your blood work is really going to be off is either if you're in very advanced stage disease or you're in the middle of a flare. And honestly, I'm in pain all the time anymore, so I can't tell if I'm in a flare or not for sure. Because I'm in pain all the time. So am I in a mild flare all the time? Well, obviously not, because my blood work's not tracking. So it very likely is just, it's hiding. So we're still working on that, actually. That was 2.5 years ago, and we're still working on it. But 2.5 years ago, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And chronic migraines, and I have some damage in my back from a car accident years and years and years ago. So there's nerve damage, there's peripheral nerve damage, there's various things going on that are preventing me from living my best life. So when I said yesterday that I hadn't worked since July of 2011, this is why, because there's new stuff coming up in health-wise. Every day it seems like, I mean, that's not true, but it's like every week I'm having a new symptom, or I find a new lump or bump somewhere, or just, I have an allergic reaction to something. It's crazy. Like, every time I start thinking that I'm turning a corner, and okay, I have a couple of good days, and I think I'm turning a corner, and then wham, I get hit with something else. And it's getting to the point where I'm getting very depressed very often. So needless to say, I'm really glad The Walking Dead is back tonight because I need it. I need the fight. I need the hope that I was talking about yesterday. I need that in my life right now because I feel like I'm struggling, you know, and I mean, I struggle a lot, but usually I'm stronger than the struggle and I make it through. But lately I'm finding that I'm not able to overcome the fear and I don't want to say paranoia because that makes me sound like a hysteric. But I do get a little paranoid. I mean, that's the truth. When you suffer from chronic illness, you get completely complacent and you say that every single weird symptom, lump, bump, anything that you have is related to the diagnosis that you have received. Or you get paranoid and, you know, every single thing means you're dying. Every new symptom means you have cancer or you know what I mean? Like, it sounds completely irrational. And I suppose maybe it is irrational, but sorry, the light just keeps changing outside and it's changing the lighting on my face. I apologize. I don't know how to express it properly, but you either get complacent or you get paranoid. I find there really isn't a middle ground. Like with most people, it's either you're just like, oh, it's the fibro, or oh, it's the lupus, or oh, you know, whatever it is you've been diagnosed with. Or every little symptom completely freaks you out. And that's kind of where I am right now. Every weird symptom just totally freaks me out. And I feel bad because, like the other night, I expressed this on Facebook, but I had a total panic attack, emotional meltdown the other night because I found some lumps on my back, which I'm still in the process of having evaluated and trying to determine what they are. But I've had several massage therapists tell me that they're nothing to worry about, that they're very common, and so that makes me feel a little bit better. But I found these lumps on my back, and I immediately start panicking because I have swollen lymph nodes in other places in my body that I'm also in the process of having evaluated. And so I'm like, oh my God, and they're pretty big lumps. So I was like, oh my God, are these lymph nodes? Now, in researching the human body anatomy online, it doesn't appear there are any lymph nodes in that particular area, so that makes me feel a little bit better also. But I'm just like, so then my brain is like, oh my God, I have, you know, lymphoma, or you know what I mean? Like, this is what happens inside my head. Like, and then I obsess over that one thing, like that one fear in my head. I zero in on it, I obsess on it, and then I completely lose it. I'm bawling, I can't breathe, I'm shaking, I can't swallow, like full on panic attack. And this has happened several times, so you know, I know, and so my therapist that I had prior had diagnosed me with several mental health issues, most of which I already knew about from before. From when I was younger, I had some issues. But, sorry, I'm like, breathe, Kari. Anyway, but he said that because of the incident with the blood clot and being in the ICU for 8 days and almost dying and just all this stuff, that I suffered from post. So my camera decided to just stop recording. So I was talking about PTSD and medical anxiety. And so basically, medical anxiety is like a fear of disease and procedures and hospitals and things like that. And it kind of goes hand in hand with PTSD because it's usually caused by medical trauma, and that clearly happened. So I do have a certain degree of this medical anxiety, PTSD stuff that makes my panicking over medical stuff just that much worse. It makes me have very irrational, unreasonable fears about what's going on inside my body, what medical conditions I have, that sort of thing. So it's just really stressful. So when I got the question, like, why haven't you worked since 2011? It's because I've had this clusterfuck of medical bullshit that has rained all over my parade for the last 6 years and has no signs of stopping at all. In fact, really, there's only signs of it getting worse. And I'm not real happy about that. I've accepted what is, mainly because I have zero choice. Excuse me. I have to just accept it. I mean, because if I don't, then I can't like move forward at all. Does that make sense? Like, it's hard to talk about because I'm constantly scared. And that's really frustrating to me because I was never one to be afraid of really anything. And now I'm afraid of everything. And that is incredibly frustrating to me. And I feel helpless, and I was never a helpless victim, you know, and now I feel like I am. But I'm a victim of my own body, not a victim of anyone else. You know what I mean? Like, and I've been a victim of another human being before. And as shitty as that was, and yes, I was able to overcome it, but as shitty as it is to be a victim of another person, it's a whole nother thing when you're a victim of your own fucked up immune system and there's literally nothing you can do. You know, I can't sue my own body for backfiring on me. I can't beat the shit out of my own body without only making myself suffer. I can't send my friends after my own body with baseball bats. Because again, I would only make myself suffer. Some of my personal friends will know what I'm talking about. You know, I feel like I can't really fight back because, first of all, we're not 100% sure what's happening, you know? So you can't fight something that doesn't have a name. Yes, I have fibromyalgia, but ask any doctor and they're like, there is no treatment or cure for fibromyalgia. You're just kind of screwed and you have to live with it. At least when you have an autoimmune disease, there's tried and true treatments that you can at least try, you know, that is not a luxury that is afforded to me at the moment because I have no diagnosis. So it's not like I can just take medications, you know, willy-nilly and, you know what I mean? Like, although I'm more than willing to do that if they would just like say, hey, we think you have X, Y, or Z, and so we're going to give you this medication that treats Y and X, and hopefully it'll help. You know what I mean? Like, I'm almost to that point. So anyway, that's one of the questions I got regarding the video yesterday. I guess this is kind of turning into a vlog thing because I used to blog, like written blog, but the joints in my fingers lock up so bad now when I try to type that blogging is really not, like typing blogging is really not feasible for me anymore, at least not often. If you're interested at all in prior stuff that I've written, it's www.karicurrent.com. That's www.karicurrent.com. That's all lowercase, no spaces, no special characters, no nothing. There you'll find a collection of my ramblings that are really similar to this, but written down as opposed to me just talking. I may keep doing this if I see there's any kind of interest at all. I know some of my personal friends are maybe interested in what's going on in my life, maybe interested in seeing me because nobody really comes here anymore except for my very, very bestie wifey and my sister. So, and that's fine. You know, that's fine. Everybody's got lives and I totally get that. So, you know, I may keep doing this vlog thing for a while. I've been wanting to start a beauty channel for like 2 years. I'm obsessed with YouTube beauty tutorials. You wouldn't know it right now, but I don't have the confidence right now. I'm very like, I've put on weight due to a lot of factors health-wise. So I'm really not, you know, thrilled with, my skin is just really angry and acting up. I don't feel confident enough yet to try to do a beauty related channel, but it turns out I kind of like sitting here talking to my phone about my life. And there's a lot of other aspects of this health journey that I've been on that I could talk about. But the main thing I wanted to touch on today was just why I haven't worked this whole time. Because I know to some people that sounds really lazy or, you know, whatever. And I don't want anybody to think that it's out of, believe me, I miss working so much. Like I have friends that I used to work with that I'm still friends with who are getting promoted and they're doing all these great things at their jobs that we used to work at together. And as happy as I am for them, it's also incredibly depressing because I feel like I was robbed of that part of my life by the crappy boss and then in turn by my health, or lack thereof. So anyway, it's just going to be me talking to my phone in really crappy lighting. I may or may not have makeup on. I may have cool things to talk about. I may not. If you have any questions involving my health situation or you want to just talk about The Walking Dead, like right on. I'm so here for it. Yeah, I don't know what else to say other than thank you guys for watching yesterday's video. Thank you if you're still sitting here watching today's video. I know I tend to ramble a lot, but the reality of my life is I don't have a lot of people to talk to these days. So apparently I am great at talking to myself or strangers on the other side of a screen. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you take something away from these vlogs as, you know, don't give up. It's easy to want to. It's easy to think that, you know, everybody would be better off without you. It's easy to think that life is too hard and too complicated, but at the same time, there's amazing reasons to stay alive, you know, and just one of many is great TV like The Walking Dead, and your family, of course. and your furry friends and your friends and anybody else that's in your life that you think is important is a reason to keep fighting and to keep, to try to stay strong. And I know it's hard, especially if you're like me and you're living with a chronic health condition. It is hard to stay optimistic and stay strong and try to live your life in pain and being and sick all the time. I mean, it's really hard. But I promise you that there are still things that will bring light to your life, that'll bring light to your days, that will make you feel happy again. You just have to look around and find whatever it is that makes you happy, whether it's a book or a TV show or a movie or crafting or starting your own like business online, like selling something or whatever it is. Find something that brings you joy and then just try to keep that in your life as much as possible. So anyway, thanks guys. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them and I will try to answer. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram. It's Kiki Athena 79. That's capital K-I, capital K-I, capital A-T-H-E-N-A 79. You can also find me on Facebook, Kari Athena Current, and also Beauty by Kiki Athena 79 is also on Facebook. It's one of my pages. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Have a great day. Oh, and happy Walking Dead Day. Love you guys.